Caring for someone with dementia is exhausting and stressful. You don't have to insist on being right, and you don't need to keep trying to make them remember. Most importantly, don't try to do everything alone. Enjoy life and stay healthy. I'm Dr. Mandarin. This video is for those who are feeling tired from caring for someone with dementia, those who are stressed, and those who are feeling irritated. This video is for you. I want people who are usually tired from dementia caregiving, those who feel stuck, or those struggling to watch this video. Through this video, I hope you can deepen your understanding of people with dementia, and at the same time, I made this video hoping that those who are tired from caregiving can find some insights or make their daily lives a little easier. If you ever feel overwhelmed, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. I'll reply, and your comment will show others they're not alone in these struggles. It can also become a place where people feel they're not alone, so I hope the comment section becomes lively with replies and people consulting each other. My name is Dr. Mandarin, and I usually work at a community hospital doing things like inpatient care, outpatient care, and home visits. Dementia is something I just can't avoid dealing with. Even in outpatient care, I often talk with families who are struggling with concerns about dementia, and I share in their pain. That's why I'm making these videos, hoping to help even a little bit. If you try even a little of what I'm about to talk about, there are actually many people who are able to live just like they did before they had dementia, so I hope you'll listen with hope. To get straight to the point, you don't need to insist on being right. Also, there's no need to give long explanations to the person themselves, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. Please think of relying on those around you as your job. I'll share with you some words that I personally think are important, so I hope they will be helpful to you. Take notes, or take a screenshot, or save it for later, and please try watching this video again when you're feeling tired. Now, let's get into the content. The first of the 3 things not to do in dementia care is not to insist on being right. A lot of people are taking care of their own parents, so they feel like they have to be correct, or that if they don't correct their parents properly, their dementia will get worse. Many people feel that sense of responsibility, but it's okay not to insist on being right. What I mean by that is, for example, let's say there's someone who's getting angry and asking, "Isn't breakfast ready yet?" That means they've already had breakfast, but they've forgotten that they ate. If you say, "You already had breakfast, didn't you?" it gets tiring, doesn't it? And they end up repeating it over and over again. It's similar. At those times, it's fine to change the subject. You can't just be idealistic about it. If you try to correct them every time, both the person and you will just get tired. So what I want to share with everyone here is that dementia it's a result of aging, but it's also a definite illness. So you can't really stop dementia from progressing, and things that are forgotten once will keep being forgotten. Trying to always be correct is really exhausting, so it's okay to change the subject. If they ask, "Is breakfast ready?" reply, "You're right, it's not ready yet. I want to make tea first, so could you help me boil water, Dad?" That's all you need to do. Some may ask, is it okay to lie like that? When that happens, think that somewhat suspicious sounding doctor, Dr. Mandarin. Just think to yourself, it's fine because that YouTube doctor said so. I don't think there will be people who say things like that anyway. Another example is something called delusions of theft. This is also a pretty heartbreaking symptom, where the person loses their money and then accuses their closest caregiver of taking it, demanding that they give it back. What this means is that the person usually keeps their money somewhere safe so they won't lose it and put it away somewhere else. They put it away, but then they forget the very place where they put it. So even if you remind them, they can't recall it. They don't remember where they put it or even the act of putting it away. So the next day, when they realize they don't have any money, they think, huh? It's not in the usual place. And most people with cognitive issues aren't aware of their condition, so they believe their mind is still sharp. If the money isn't in the usual place, they think someone must have taken it, and the only person who knows where I keep my important things is the one who always takes care of me, my daughter, which means you. That's what they end up saying. This delusion that someone has stolen their things comes from their belief that they're fine, and it's a kind of reverse reaction to that. Don't try to prove you're right here. Even if you say, "I didn't take it," it only leads to a pointless argument. It always turns into a battle, so you should avoid it. It's okay to distract them or even tell a little white lie. If that leads to their happiness, please think of it that way. As a tip, I think it's okay if you let them find it themselves. That often works well. For example, you could say, "Mom, the money's gone. I wonder where it went. Why don't you help me look for it?" Or even just say, "Let's look for it together." If they say, "You took it, didn't you?" you can reply, "Oh, maybe I put it somewhere and just don't remember. Would you help me look for it?" I don't think they can stay angry if you say that, so try to steer the conversation in that direction. If you and the person end up pulling in opposite directions about the money, it will definitely turn into a battle. So basically, say something like, "I wonder where the money went," and treat the money as something outside of both of you. It's important for you and the person to face the same direction and work together, pointing your arrows the same way. Take the missing money or the idea that maybe I misplaced it and treat it as something outside of both of us. Then say, "Let's look for it together," so that you and the person are facing the same direction. Finding creative ways to do this is the key to avoiding trouble. These may seem like small tricks, but in the end, I think they'll help reduce your stress and increase the person's happiness, so please give them a try. When caring for someone with dementia, there are 3 things you don't have to do. The second is not making them remember things. Just because they've forgotten something, you don't need to try to make them remember by saying, "This is how it is," and trying to get them to memorize it. You don't need to give long explanations like, "This happened, so that means it's like this," trying to make the person remember. There's no need to do that. Many people do this because they're trying to be sincere and caring, but you really don't have to do that either. Dementia is a disease where you forget things. That's why they can't retain new information. Please understand that while old memories may remain, they can't retain new things. Wandering is a common symptom, right? You've probably heard of it. They might go somewhere and end up not knowing where they are. Like, where am I? They might get lost and end up needing help from the police. Things like that can happen too. Even if you try hard to explain, like, "This is your home," the person will forget. So there's almost no point in explaining. About the word wandering, from the perspective of people who don't know much, it might just seem like an elderly person is wandering around. But this isn't really wandering, it's just trying to go home. What I mean is, for the person themselves, their idea of home is different for each person, but it's probably a house they lived in a long time ago. Maybe it's the house they lived in as a child, or the house they lived in the longest as an adult. That's what they remember, so they feel like, "Where am I?" Sometimes, even in their own home, they might wander. I work at a hospital, and dementia patients who are admitted almost always feel like they have to go home. That's because they don't remember why they came to the hospital. They don't know the reason they're there. So instead of calling it wandering, it's basically just trying to go home. Getting angry about breakfast not being ready, wandering around, or claiming something was stolen and having delusions are all actually normal reactions. People with dementia usually experience these things. Eventually, even feelings like anger will fade, but these reactions are basically normal responses, so you have to hold back your feelings and remind yourself, "Oh, this is a symptom commonly seen in people with dementia, even if it's difficult." There's no need to correct their behavior or make them remember things. You can try changing the subject or using familiar objects. Those are some helpful tips. You can display a familiar clock or familiar photos to help them feel like this is their home, or play their favorite music. If they say, "Oh, I remember this music," you can guide their attention that way, which can help them feel more at ease. Also, it's important to give them a role or responsibility. I'll explain this more in detail later, but what I want to tell everyone here is that dementia, little by little, they say people gradually return to being like children, so it's often said that it's important to treat them like children, but there are 2 big differences. With dementia, emotions and pride are said to remain. Let me explain about emotions. When people with dementia become more irritable, what does that mean? They might get angry, wander around, or have delusions, but all of these basically come from a sense of anxiety. For example, if they can't remember whether they've had breakfast, they might think they haven't been given breakfast even if they have, and that makes them angry or anxious about whether it's okay not to eat. That's also why they might wander around. "Oh, that's not good, not good." They might feel anxious about needing to go home, or in the case of delusions, they might worry that something has been stolen from them and feel anxious about what will happen if something gets taken next. So for people with dementia, the underlying emotion that remains is anxiety. Little by little, their personality may start to change. That's why it's important to help them keep different, more positive and comfortable emotions instead. For example, if you get angry and say, "You already had breakfast, didn't you?" the unpleasant feeling of being scolded will remain. They might not remember the exact words, but the feeling of being scolded stays with them. Since that feeling remains, the next time they see that person, the unpleasant emotion lingers in their mind, and communication gradually gets worse in a negative cycle. And when I say their pride remains, what I mean is, people with dementia are often said to become more like children, but they still have their pride as parents. It often remains until the very end, so if you treat them like a child, it can hurt their pride. Also, it's important to give them a role, especially their role as a parent. It's important to let them have some kind of role in the household. One thing to keep in mind is that since their cognitive abilities have declined, they can't do everything, so if you give them something they might fail at, it can hurt their motivation and pride. So it's best to let them do things they can handle, like making tea, for example. Giving them something they can do is the key to helping them keep their pride. What I want to say is, it's important to give them a sense of security, to let them know it's okay for them to be here, and to show gratitude by saying thank you. Respecting their pride and dignity is a very important point in dementia care. On this channel, I share medical information from a doctor's perspective to help everyone enjoy becoming healthier, so please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, if you could give a thumbs up or leave a comment, it helps this video reach more people who need it, so I would really appreciate your support. Alright, let's wrap up. The third thing to avoid when caring for someone with dementia is trying to do everything alone. This is the most important point. A common issue is when someone says they don't want to go to the hospital and people ask me what they should do in that situation. One quick tip is not to insist on being right. For example, you might say, since it would be a problem if you develop dementia, how about going for a checkup? If you take the approach of dementia prevention without saying that the person has dementia, some people might respond by saying, alright, maybe I'll go. And another thing is that there are community comprehensive support centers. Each area has a center that provides support, so if you call them and say, I'm having this kind of trouble, what should I do? They will listen to your concerns and give you advice. Using those kinds of resources is also one option, and finally, relying on those around you, both for your own sake and for the person themselves, becomes part of your role as a caregiver. If you collapse, the person you care for will be in trouble, and the person themselves, who was originally your parent, surely does not want you to collapse. And we, as medical professionals, have seen many people with dementia and have studied a lot, so we can give you plenty of advice on how to handle things. Be sure to rely on those around you. And finally, if you're going through something difficult or anything you'd like to talk about, please feel free to leave a comment. See you next time.